What did you just call me in front of your parents? I repeated the question, my voice calm to the point of chilling, even as my heart pounded violently. The whole room was still reeling after my husband, Nathan, had slammed his plate onto the table and hissed through clenched teeth. My parents are not trash. Don't you ever feed them leftovers? My in-laws froze. Their eyes drilled into me, waiting to see how I would crumble under such a blatant insult. But I only lowered my head slightly, curved my lips, and whispered, "How funny, because this food wasn't prepared by me." In an instant, Nathan's face shifted from fury to confusion. The atmosphere felt as though someone had dropped a bomb in the middle of the dinner table. No one in that room knew that this very moment would fling open the door to the filthy secrets he had kept hidden. And from here on, this family would never again be able to keep their perfect mask intact. If you want to understand why Nathan's insult that day left me paralyzed, we have to rewind many years back, when everything still looked like a beautiful dream I believed I was lucky to have. I met Nathan at a business seminar in Chicago. I was 27 then, working as a marketing manager for a startup. I had been invited to share my experience in building digital brands. Nathan appeared as a guest from a mid-sized tech company. He stood out right from the start. Tall, confident, and more importantly, able to make the entire hall laugh with his perfectly timed jokes. But what surprised me was that among the hundreds of people there, Nathan fixed his eyes on me. When the discussion ended, I was gathering my materials when his voice came from right behind me. "Your presentation made me forget to even check my work email. That's the most genuine compliment I can think of." I laughed, a little flustered by such a direct yet endearing opening. We started talking. At first it was polite questions: how the work was, where we came from, views on branding. But soon, I realized he actually knew how to listen, not wait for his turn to speak. That evening, when the guests went out to an Italian restaurant near the river, Nathan deliberately chose the seat beside me. He poured wine, told ridiculous stories about getting lost on a business trip in New York, making me laugh until my stomach hurt. I hadn't felt so lighthearted in a long time. After just a few meetings, I began to notice something different about him. Nathan made me feel like the center of the room, even when dozens of others surrounded us. 1 month later, he asked me to officially date him. I agreed, a little surprised by the speed, but also thrilled. Evening walks in Millennium Park, weekend trips to Lake Michigan, his steady "did you have breakfast?" texts every morning all painted a romance out of a novel. 3 months in, he took me to meet his family. Their home in Naperville was a red brick house, with a neatly trimmed lawn and rose vines climbing the windows. His father, Richard, was a retired businessman with a dignified posture and a fondness for jokes. His mother, Elaine, was gentle and skillful, her smile always warm. At our first meeting, she hugged me tightly. "From now on, you're not only Nathan's girlfriend, you're our daughter." Those words choked me up. My own parents were retired teachers with a simple life. Being welcomed so warmly by a well-off family made me feel like I had stepped into an entirely new world. Richard quickly proved he wasn't only humorous. He cared in the simplest ways, always asking what I wanted to drink or eat, sharing funny stories from Nathan's youth. Once, he laughed so hard he cried while telling me how little Nathan had tried to start a company by selling lemonade at double the neighbor's price, only to end up drinking it all himself. I sat listening, feeling myself blend in naturally. Elaine pulled me into the kitchen to show me how to make her famous apple pie. I felt welcomed, accepted. As time passed, our bond grew stronger. After nearly a year of dating, Nathan proposed one summer evening. We were having a picnic on Lake Michigan's beach, the wind whipping, the sunset painting the water gold. From the basket, he pulled out a small blue velvet box, knelt on one knee, his eyes shining. "Beatrice, you make my life more worth living than anything else. Will you marry me?" I nodded without hesitation. The wedding was held the following fall in Richard and Elaine's backyard garden. The sky was clear, white ribbons fluttered in the breeze, soft jazz music played. My parents sat proudly in the front row while my in-laws fussed over every detail. Elaine hugged me tightly. "From today, you are truly my daughter." Both families pooled money so we could buy a small house in the suburbs, not far from Chicago. A white-painted wooden home, with a wide porch and a tall oak in the yard. I remember standing on the steps the day we signed the papers, trembling with happiness, thinking, this is the dream I've always longed for. Our first night there, We sat on the bare floor, eating pizza from cardboard boxes, laughing as we imagined the future, family photos on the wall, children's footsteps in the living room, the smell of morning coffee filling the kitchen. Nathan wrapped his arms around me, whispering, "We'll have it all, B. I promise." In that moment, I believed him completely. I believed in what we were building. I thought with love, with both families' support, my life had entered a new chapter, bright, hopeful, but I had no idea that behind the perfect facade, cracks had already begun to show, cracks I was too blind to see. Pregnancy at first felt like a miracle. I still remember the morning I held the test with 2 red lines, my heart racing, hands shaking so badly I had to sit on the bathroom floor. When I told Nathan, he swept me up, spinning me around the kitchen like a child. He laughed, promised he'd be the best father, that he'd work harder so our baby could have everything. At first, he did take on extra shifts, coming home late but always bringing flowers or my favorite snacks. He proudly told friends he was going to be a dad, his eyes glowing. I told myself, he's doing this for the family. But as time went on, the joy faded into exhaustion I'd never imagined. I was vomiting constantly, barely able to keep any meal down. My body felt heavy, my head spinning, even small chores like wiping the sink or hanging clothes left me drenched in sweat. Nathan was home less and less. He said he was working overtime, that the new project was intense. I tried to believe him, but every night I watched the clock tick past 9, almost 10 p.m. before the door finally opened. He walked in, a strange perfume lingering, but I was too drained to ask. The housework piled on me. At first, Nathan said he'd take care of everything: laundry, cooking, cleaning. And for a few weeks, he did, even making me honey lemon water every morning. But gradually, things slipped back. Dishes stacked high, dirty laundry overflowing, trash cans full. I scrubbed the floor while gagging, my back aching as if it would snap. One evening, I was so exhausted, I collapsed on the bathroom floor. The shower water ran, steam suffocating me. I tried to stand but blacked out beside the tub. When I opened my eyes, Nathan was in the doorway. I expected a hug, a worried question. Instead, he frowned, voice sharp. "Again? You always use pregnancy as an excuse." I froze, my heart crushed. "Nathan, what did you just say?" He crossed his arms, leaning against the frame. "I work 12, 13 hours out there, and all you do is lie around complaining. Being pregnant doesn't mean you can't do anything." Tears streamed down my face, mingling with the water still clinging to my skin. Trembling, I whispered, "You think I want this? I'm fighting every day, but my body is shutting down." He sighed, shook his head like I was an unbearable burden. Without another word, he walked away, leaving me on the cold tile floor. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the ticking clock. A wave of pain and humiliation rose inside me. I had imagined a husband who would hold my hand through the hardest days. Instead, I felt more alone than ever. A few days later, nothing had improved. Nathan still left early and came home late, leaving me to struggle in the empty house. I kept telling myself he was under pressure at work. But deep down, I knew he had changed. One morning, after throwing up violently, I looked in the mirror and saw a pale, gaunt face. I no longer recognized the woman who had once been strong, who had once believed she had found happiness. I called my mother. The moment she said, "B, are you okay?" my tears spilled over. I couldn't hold back and told her everything: the exhaustion, the cruel words, the empty nights. On the other end, she stayed silent for a long time before finally saying, "My daughter, no one deserves to be abandoned at their most vulnerable. If staying hurts you, come home. There's always a room here for you." That night, when Nathan came back, I gathered my courage and said, "I'm going to stay with my parents for a while. I need quiet. I need to rest." He looked up, slightly surprised, then shrugged, "Do what you want. Go wherever you like." No attempt to stop me. No sign of care. I packed my suitcase, carefully tucking in, even the tiny things for the baby growing inside me. Early the next morning, my father drove over to pick me up. As I rolled the suitcase down the porch steps, its wheels squeaking, Nathan was still fast asleep in the bedroom. In the back seat, I cradled my belly, the only sound the steady hum of the car. My father didn't ask anything. He simply reached one hand back and held mine. His palm was warm, steady, like a promise that I wasn't alone. When the car stopped in front of the house, my mother was already waiting at the door, holding a thick blanket and a jar of lavender cream I had known since childhood. Stepping into my old room, seeing the pale blue floral curtains still hanging like in my teenage years, I finally allowed myself to sigh. I collapsed onto the bed, and for the first time in weeks, felt the tension ease from my shoulders. In that moment, I knew I had chosen right. I had left the house once called a home, to find peace where it all began. And I promised myself, for my child, I would not let myself fall again. I stayed at my parents' home for more than 2 weeks. At first, I drifted in and out of restless sleep, sometimes waking in the middle of the night to press my hands over my belly, as if making sure that at least one life was still tied to me. My mother prepared every small meal, cooking chicken porridge, making ginger lemon tea, leaving it by my bedside. My father often lingered on the porch, reading the paper, but whenever I passed by, he looked up and smiled, reassuring me. That quiet felt like a blanket wrapped around me, reminding me I still belonged somewhere. I didn't contact Nathan. Partly out of pride, partly because I couldn't bear to hear words that would tear me open again. I sent him a short message. I went to the doctor. The baby is developing well. That's all I want you to know right now. That message was never answered. One afternoon in early May, while I was folding newborn clothes my mother had bought at a local shop, the doorbell rang. My mother went to open it, then called, "Bee, you have visitors." I thought it was a neighbor or an old friend. But when I stepped into the living room, I froze. Elaine was on the porch, my mother-in-law in a long coat, and beside her was Richard, carrying a paper bag filled with food. "May we come in?" Elaine asked, her eyes carrying a rare trace of worry. It felt like two worlds colliding. My mother quietly stepped back to give us space. When they walked in, the small living room filled with the smell of apple pie and fresh bread. Richard set the bag down, clearing his throat. We're sorry, Bee." Elaine came closer, took my hand. Her palm was soft but trembling. "I had no idea you had left the house." Nathan didn't say a word. We only found out when we stopped by and saw it empty. I had to press him, and only then did he admit you were here. My heart tightened. I had never wanted them to take sides, but their coming all the way here left me both surprised and moved. I pressed my lips together, unsure how to respond. Elaine continued, her voice soft, almost confiding. "I carried Nathan through a brutal Wisconsin winter. There were nights I cried from back pain, from exhaustion, sometimes wanting to give up. But his father never left me alone. That's why I can't imagine what you've gone through these past weeks. I'm sorry we weren't here sooner." My throat closed up. I didn't want to cry, but that compassion weakened me. Richard spoke up, trying to ease the weight in the room. "I thought you were fine, because Nathan always said everything was good." I had no idea. "It's shameful that we let our daughter go through this." For the first time since I'd left, I spoke my truth. "I don't need anyone to defend me." But I thought at the very least, when I fainted in the bathroom, someone would ask if I was hurt. Instead, what I got was blame. Elaine closed her eyes, shaking her head. Richard let out a heavy sigh, his eyes filled with disappointment. My mother brought in tea, set the tray down, then quietly retreated to the kitchen, giving us space. Elaine wiped her eyes, looking at me with sincerity. "You don't have to go through this alone, Bee. From now on, if you need us, we'll be here. No matter what Nathan does, you're still our daughter." We sat talking for more than an hour. Elaine shared memories of Nathan as a child, partly to lighten the mood, partly to remind me she had once walked the same road I was on now. Richard occasionally added clumsy jokes, trying to make me laugh. At one point, he told how Nathan had begged for a dog but was so scared he had to sleep with the lights on for a week. I laughed, then realized how long it had been since I'd felt that kind of laughter without guilt. When they rose to leave, Elaine hugged me again, whispering, "Take care of yourself. Don't carry this alone. We won't let you be abandoned." Richard added firmly, "If Nathan keeps dismissing you, he'll have to answer to us." For the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe that at least within this family, there were still people who truly saw me, who cared. And from that moment, a faint hope stirred inside me that I wouldn't be completely alone in this fight. I thought I would have more time of peace at my parents' house. But less than a week after Richard and Elaine's visit, on a rainy afternoon, the doorbell rang again. I opened the door, my chest tightening when I saw Nathan standing there. His shirt soaked, tie loosened, his face more hollow than I remembered. His fists clenched, his eyes stripped of their usual defiance. Can I come in?" I hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside. From the kitchen, my mother glanced over with wary eyes but said nothing. Nathan sank onto the couch, wringing his hands, his voice quiet. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those cruel things. I know you felt alone, and I abandoned you." I crossed my arms, leaning back into the chair across from him. "You didn't make me feel alone, Nathan. You left me alone." He bowed his head, silent for a long time. The rain tapping against the window filled the room. Finally, he looked up. "I want to make it right. I don't want to lose you. Or the baby. I was under too much pressure. But that's no excuse. I promise I'll change." I searched his eyes for honesty. Part of me wanted to believe him, another part whispered that this promise would vanish like bubbles. I exhaled slowly, speaking carefully. "I'll give you a chance. But not now. I need peace to bring this baby into the world. We'll talk about coming back after she's born." Nathan nodded quickly, clinging to the fragile thread. "I understand. However long it takes. As long as you give me a chance." After that, I poured all my energy into the pregnancy. I went to every checkup, ate as the doctor advised, tried to stay calm. My mother often came with me, holding my hand as the baby's heartbeat echoed in the room. In those moments, I felt my spirit settle. Nathan sometimes sent short messages. "Are you okay? How's the baby?" I replied politely, not cold, but not warm either. I wanted distance, to protect myself from hoping too much. Then the day came. It was a gray October morning, light rain falling. Labor had started past midnight, contractions hitting hard. My mother rushed me to the hospital, my father driving fast through the rain. In the delivery room, lights blazed, the smell of antiseptic thick in the air. I gripped my mother's hand, sweat pouring. The pain ripped through me, every minute a battle. Time dragged 10 hours, 12, then 14. I was nearly spent when finally, a cry rang out. A tiny, mighty sound, filling the room. My daughter Amelia entered the world on a heavy rainy morning. My mother burst into tears, and I laughed through mine. The nurse placed the baby in my arms. Tiny, red, but with eyes that fluttered open, seeming to look straight at me. My heart melted. The door swung open. Nathan rushed in, his coat still wet from the rain. He froze, then slowly stepped forward, his eyes uncertain. When he heard Amelia's cry, his eyes reddened. He reached out, touched my shoulder lightly, his voice trembling. "I came late. But, oh, she's perfect." I looked over. Tears streamed down his cheeks. For the first time, I saw Nathan fragile. In that moment, he seemed truly like a father. I let him hold Amelia. He trembled as if afraid of hurting her. I saw his lips move, whispering something only he could hear. And for a brief second, I let myself believe, maybe things would change. The first days after birth were a whirlwind. Amelia cried endlessly through the night. I struggled to nurse, my body ached, the stitches pulled with every step. But holding her, breathing in the sweet scent of newborn skin, I felt I could endure anything. Nathan stayed with me in the hospital for 2 days. He changed diapers, rocked Amelia so I could nap, even prepared formula when I was too drained. Once, I looked over and saw him dozing in the chair beside the bed, Amelia cradled in his arms. That sight softened my heart. When we were discharged, we brought Amelia back to the little house. The room I once found cold was now filled with tiny things: a white crib, stuffed animals, floral blankets. I held my daughter, thinking maybe this family had found a new beginning. That first night home, Nathan wrapped his arms around me from behind, whispering, "I know I've made so many mistakes. But from now on, I'll be different. I promise." I closed my eyes, letting myself believe that promise. With rain tapping on the roof, I wanted to believe that this time, we could truly start over. In the first days after Amelia's birth, Nathan truly surprised me. He held her with almost nervous care, clumsily but earnestly prepared bottles, even set alarms to wake with me at night. Sometimes I caught him pressing a kiss to Amelia's tiny hand, his eyes glistening. Then, I thought, Maybe he really had changed. But it all faded like a dream. Amelia had colic hours of crying with no clear reason. She screamed through the night, her cries cutting deep, testing the limits of anyone's strength. I stayed awake, hands shaking, as I paced the living room, back aching, eyes burning. During those times, Nathan often sat in a chair, phone in hand. When I looked over, silently begging for help, he shrugged, "You're fine." Then turned back to the glowing screen full of work messages. One night, I was rocking Amelia, desperate to soothe her, when a Slack notification chimed. Nathan immediately left the bed, opened his laptop, and began typing furiously. I watched his silhouette in the screen's glow, feeling as if an ocean stretched between us. My body was breaking down. The incision still sore, my chest tight with milk, limbs trembling from lack of sleep. I lived on cold coffee and scraps of dry bread. Each time I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize the hollow-eyed woman staring back. One evening, Amelia cried from 6 p.m. until nearly midnight. I carried her, whispering over and over, "Shh, Amelia, Mommy's here." Tears dripped onto her cheeks, hot and bitter. My head spun, my body past its limit. As I stepped through the bedroom doorway, my vision went black. I clutched Amelia to my chest and collapsed onto the floor. Her wail pierced the air. When I opened my eyes, my mother was holding Amelia, her voice trembling as she called my name, "B. Can you hear me?" I forced myself up, lips parched. She set Amelia in the crib, then helped me lean against the wall. Her eyes burned with both anger and worry. "Why didn't you tell me? You can't endure this alone." I cried like a child, my head on her shoulder. My whole body felt broken, but the sharpest pain was Nathan's absence. He wasn't there. Still at the office, still glued to work. My mother wiped my tears, her tone firm. "A real husband doesn't let his wife collapse like this. You have to think about your health and Amelia's." I knew she was right. But my heart was trapped between fragile hope and crushing despair. Nathan came home close to 2 a.m. I sank into the couch, hair tangled, eyes swollen. He looked at me, surprised. "You're still awake." My mother was still there, Amelia in her arms. She didn't hide her anger. "My daughter nearly fainted holding your baby. Where were you?" He stammered. "She was crying so much. I had to finish work." My mother cut him off, her voice steel. "No excuse matters more than being here. My daughter needs a husband, my granddaughter needs a father. If you can't do that, my husband and I will." Nathan stayed silent. He looked at me, but his eyes held no remorse, only discomfort at being caught. When my mother carried Amelia to another room, I finally spoke, my voice raw. "Do you know what I've been waiting for? Not money. Not promises. Just a hand holding mine when I was about to fall. But you weren't there." Nathan ran a hand through his hair, sighed. "I'm exhausted, bae. Work is crushing me. I don't know how to balance it all." I gave a hollow, bitter laugh. "And me? You think I can balance it, sleeping 2 hours a night, our baby screaming her lungs out, my body breaking down? Do you think I get to say, 'I'm too tired, I can't do this'?" Nathan said nothing. The room filled with the ticking clock, pressing against every heavy breath. From then on, my mother came more often. She cooked soup, cleaned, rocked Amelia so I could nap. Some nights she stayed over, sleeping on the sofa to make sure I didn't collapse again. My father quietly replaced hallway light bulbs, checked locks, small things Nathan never noticed. Inside, I felt both grateful and devastated. Grateful my parents had never abandoned me. Devastated that the man I called husband, the one who should have been my anchor, had vanished, while their aging hands carried me instead. Every night, after Amelia finally fell asleep, I lay awake. My mother's footsteps on the wooden floor, my father's soft snoring in the next room, proof that I still had somewhere safe. Yet in the same house Nathan and I had built, I felt only emptiness. Each time he returned, he'd drop his bag, crack open his laptop. Keys chattered louder than the baby. The smell of office coffee mixed with some unfamiliar scent on his collar. He dropped his bag, opened his laptop, the clatter of keys drowning Amelia's cries. When I looked at him, hoping he might step closer, take the baby, hold me, it shattered with one cold line: "You handle her, I've got urgent work." That sentence was a verdict. He believed I could handle it. That I should. That I needed no one. But the truth was, I was unraveling. Night after night, I cradling Amelia, listening to the wind howl outside the window, my heart racing. I longed for a hand to hold mine, a look to say I wasn't alone, but all I had was the indifferent back of the man who once promised to walk with me for life. I was grateful my parents never abandoned me, but that gratitude was laced with shameful pain. To be loved, I had to be their daughter again, not Nathan's wife. And in those endless nights, one thought grew clearer: this marriage was no longer a refuge. It had become a steel cage. And I, though exhausted, would have to find a way to unlock it. The exhaustion dragged on until I barely knew day from night. Yet Nathan still found ways to push more weight onto me. One evening, as I had laid Amelia in the crib, my eyes stinging from lack of sleep, Nathan walked into the living room and tossed his car keys onto the table. "This Saturday my parents are coming over. Prepare a proper meal, all right?" I looked up, my voice hoarse. "I can ask my mom to cook." He frowned, shaking his head. "No, you have to do it yourself. My mother notices everything. I don't want them thinking you can't handle a simple lunch." I bit my lip, staying silent. Inside me rose a bitter ache. He never asked if I still had the strength, only cared about what his parents would think. The next day, I began preparing. I opened the fridge and lingered there a long time, not knowing where to start. My body was so exhausted that even slicing a few vegetables made my hands tremble. Amelia cried non-stop, forcing me to abandon everything. At last, I sighed and slumped into a kitchen chair. I knew I couldn't manage on my own. So Saturday morning, I called a high-end deli in town and ordered a large tray of carefully prepared dishes: rosemary focaccia bread, prosciutto, imported cheese, herb-marinated olives, and a few beautiful mixed salads. I even stopped at the flower shop and picked a bouquet of white tulips for the table. I told myself, this was all I could do right now. That afternoon, as I was setting the food on the table, the doorbell rang. I quickly wiped my hands and opened the door. Richard and Elaine stayed there, smiling, their arms full of bags. "Surprise!" Elaine cheered, holding out a large box. "I thought you could use some help, so I ordered a few things from the deli." I blinked, looking down at the box she handed me. It was exactly what I had ordered that morning. Richard grinned, raising a paper bag in his hand. "And a nice bottle of white wine too. Today's going to be a feast." I couldn't help it, something inside me melted. I invited them in and set everything on the table. Elaine gently took Amelia from my arms, soothing her with natural tenderness. Richard took off his coat, opened the wine, and told jokes that lightened the heavy air in the house. "You look exhausted, Bea," Elaine said softly when she saw the dark circles under my eyes. "Lie down on the sofa for a bit, let me watch Amelia." "But, lunch." "Don't worry," she waved her hand. "We've got everything covered." I listening to Amelia giggle in her grandmother's arms while Richard carefully arranged the food on plates. The faint scent of white wine, his low laughter filling the room. My eyelids grew heavy. I let myself relax. I drifted into a nap, Elaine's gentle humming still in my ears. I woke to the sound of the door opening. Nathan had come home. He stopped short when he saw the table full of food. His eyes flicked to me, then to his parents, then froze on the tray. His face darkened. "What is this?" he nearly shouted. "You bought takeout. I told you to cook it yourself." Before I could answer, he stepped forward, reaching for the tray. "This doesn't deserve to be in front of my parents. I'll throw it out and make something else." I shot up, my voice cracking. "Nathan, don't." But before I could say more, a deep voice cut through. "Put it down, Nathan." Richard lingered there, a glass of wine in hand, his gaze sharper than I had ever seen. Elaine still held Amelia, but her tone was icy. "The food you're about to throw away. We bought it." Nathan spun around. "You bought it?" "That's right," Richard said, each word deliberate. "I paid for it. Your mother picked the dishes. And Bea did the right thing, she let us handle it because she needed rest." Elaine looked straight at her son, her voice trembling with anger. "Do you not see how pale she is? How hollow her eyes are from sleepless nights? She gave birth, Nathan. You should be the first to protect her, not force her into the kitchen to save your pride." Nathan faltered, his face flushing as he set the tray back down. He gave a nervous laugh, trying to ease the tension. "I wanted Everything to look proper. Proper. Richard cut him off, his voice heavy as a hammer. No, you wanted to preserve your image. And to do that, you were willing to humiliate your wife, right here in her own home. Elaine pressed her cheek to Amelia's head, her eyes glistening but firm. Nathan, I thought after everything, you had grown. But now I see you're still the selfish boy who thinks everyone exists to serve you. The living room grew unbearably still. Nathan opened his mouth to argue, but Richard's sharp gaze froze him in place. Nathan opened his mouth to argue, but Richard's sharp gaze stopped him cold. And in that moment, the truth lay bare not just to me, but to his parents as well. While Nathan fumbled for an excuse, a familiar sound cut through, the faint buzz of a phone on the dining table. The screen lit up, clearly showing 4 letters, Melissa. A new message flashed before all our eyes. I felt my heart pound, while Elaine standing closest picked it up. She moved slowly, deliberately, frighteningly calm. She raised her head, looked straight at her son, and read aloud, each word like a blade. You left your jacket here. I can't wait until next time. My hands went cold. I turned to Nathan. He was frozen, face drained of color. My own voice rang out, low and steady, how long? The question hung heavy. Nathan avoided my eyes, his hands trembling, lips moving but no words coming. Richard stepped forward, his voice hoarse with restraint. Answer. Don't stay silent in front of your wife. In front of us. Nathan inhaled, then exhaled a defeated sigh. Since you went to your parents. My chest tightened. I gave a bitter laugh. So while I was lying in a hospital bed, clutching my belly through contractions, where were you? At the office late, or with Melissa? Nathan stammered. Listen. I didn't mean. It started because I was so lonely. Elaine gripped the phone, her voice trembling with fury. Lonely? You dare say that in front of your wife, the woman who bore your child, who fainted from exhaustion, while you disappeared. Richard's jaw clenched, his face red. You betrayed her while she was pregnant. What could be more vile? Nathan moved toward me, his hand reaching, desperate to take mine. I was wrong. I admit it. But I don't love her. I got carried away. I swear I never meant to leave you or Amelia. I stepped back, dragging a chair between us. Don't love her. Then why was there a second time, a third enough for her to write, I can't wait until next time? Nathan's words stuck in his throat, panic flashing in his eyes. He turned to his parents, pleading, I lost my way. Please believe me, I'll stop. But Elaine was no longer the gentle mother. She set the phone on the table, each word striking like iron. You betrayed your wife. You betrayed us for trusting you were man enough to be a husband, a father. Richard crossed his arms, his gaze full of contempt. Nothing is more disgraceful than letting your wife and parents see you stripped bare in lies. My hands trembling, but my voice strangely calm. You say it was just because you were lonely. Do you even know what real loneliness is? It's sitting in the dark, rocking a crying baby all night, staring at an empty chair, listening for footsteps that never come home. That's loneliness. And you left me to endure it alone. Nathan held his head, collapsing into the chair. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. Elaine clutched Amelia tighter, her gaze softening at the baby, but turning icy toward Nathan. Whatever you say now means nothing. The truth is you left your wife alone, and this child without a real father, from the very moment she cried her first cry. The weight in the room was so heavy I could hear the rain outside the window. I looked at my daughter sleeping peacefully in her grandmother's arms, then turned to Nathan. I'll ask you one more thing. Are you ending it with her today? Nathan looked up, eyes red. Yes. I'll end it. I don't want to lose you and Amelia. Richard waved a hand, his voice cold. Enough. You've said too many things you will do and done nothing. It's not about belief anymore. B is the one who decides, she's the one who endured it all. I spoke each word clearly. I will not live under the same roof with someone who betrayed and abandoned me. You chose Melissa. Now choose the door. It was as if Nathan had been slapped. He looked at me, then at his parents, searching for rescue. But Elaine turned away, kissing Amelia's forehead, and Richard stood tall, eyes like steel. Listen, Nathan. These are the consequences you brought on yourself. No one spoke again. The rain beat down on the roof, washing away the last illusions I had about this marriage. The living room stayed heavy. Nathan sat slumped, face buried in his hands. Amelia slept soundly in Elaine's arms, unaware of the world cracking apart. I leaned against the table, my heart racing, but each beat bringing a clarity I hadn't felt in a long time. Richard stared at his son for a long while. His eyes no longer carried their usual kindness, only raw disappointment. Then he turned to me, his voice low but steady. "B, do you want him to stay or go?" The question struck like a hammer against the last fragile glass protecting my marriage. I didn't need to think. I want him to leave. Tonight. Per the temporary order, I had exclusive use of the marital home until custody and support were finalized. Nathan looked up, panic flooding his eyes, his voice breaking. "B, you can't. This is our home. I'll make it right. I'll do whatever you want. I've waited months for you to make it right. All I got was absence and lies. There's nothing left to fix." Richard didn't wait. He strode into the hallway, pulled a small suitcase from the closet, then went upstairs to grab Nathan's duffel bag. The sound of zippers, belongings shoved into bags, echoed through the house. Nathan jumped up in alarm, trying to follow. "Dad, what are you doing?" Richard's voice came down, cold as steel. "Helping you leave faster." Elaine still cradled Amelia, her eyes soft on the baby, but when she lifted them to her son, her voice was sharp. "Nathan, you need to understand something. Being our son doesn't mean you're always right." I had never heard Elaine speak to Nathan like that. She was always the one to defend, to smooth things over. But now her face was hard, her eyes pained, as if she had lost something precious. Nathan froze, stepping back like he'd been struck. He stammered, "Mom, you're turning against me too." Elaine drew a deep breath, her voice trembling but firm. "We're not turning away. You turned your back first on your wife and your daughter." Richard came down with the bag, dropping it hard onto the floor in front of Nathan. The thud made me flinch. He crossed his arms, standing tall like a judge delivering a sentence. "Go. You'll stay with us until this is settled. But from now on, B and Amelia won't live under your lies." Nathan gripped the strap tightly, his face drained of color. He turned to me, eyes red. "B, please don't do this. I love Amelia. I was lost." I folded my arms, my voice steady. "If you truly loved us, you wouldn't have left me in the darkest days. You wouldn't have betrayed me while I carried your daughter. You call it being lost? To me, it was a choice. And you chose." Nathan opened his mouth to say more, but no one wanted to hear. Elaine turned her back, rocking Amelia gently. Richard held his silence, resolute. I remained still, my body trembling, but inside I felt a strange lightness, as if a steel door had finally opened. At last, Nathan bowed his head and lifted the bag. His footsteps echoed down the hallway, heavy, dragging. I looked at Elaine, saw her eyes red but dry. She handed Amelia back to me, squeezing my hand softly. "You did the right thing. From now on, we won't let you face this alone." 3 days later, while I was bottle feeding Amelia in the living room, the doorbell rang. I startled, then recognized the familiar faces outside. Richard and Elaine stood there, both dressed neatly as if straight from a lawyer's office. Richard carried a thick folder, Elaine a white envelope. "B, we need to talk." Richard began, his tone calm but firm. I let them in, set Amelia in the crib, and lowered myself onto the sofa. Elaine stayed close beside me, resting a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Richard opened the folder, arranging the papers neatly on the table. "These are divorce papers," he said plainly, "and documents for custody. We had a lawyer prepare them. You don't need to struggle through this alone." I looked at the stack, my chest tightening. Even with all my resolve, seeing the word divorce in black and white stabbed my heart. I had once believed marriage was the strongest anchor. Now it was only a contract waiting to be torn apart. "I don't want it all to happen too fast," I whispered, eyes lowered. Elaine squeezed my hand. "B, I understand. But for your safety, and Amelia's, it has to be decisive. We can't give Nathan more time to destroy." Richard nodded, his voice steady. "This isn't punishment. It's responsibility." He flipped to another section. "We've worked with the bank. Our lawyer obtained temporary orders, wage garnishment, suspended corporate cards, and direct child support deposited to you. He'll get a fixed allowance enough for basic work and food. No more credit cards. No more luxury spending. My breath caught, my heart racing. And Amelia. Elaine's smile was sad but resolute. All support for her will go straight to you. Every month. You won't have to wait on Nathan's promises that never come. Richard looked at me, his voice stern but protective. He will pay every cent. And if he doesn't, he'll answer to us. My eyes blurred with tears. For months, I had fought alone, thinking no one was there for me. Now, hearing those words from my in-laws, relief and gratitude swelled inside me. I don't know what to say except thank you. Elaine embraced me, whispering, "You don't owe us thanks. We're doing this for Amelia, and because you deserve a decent life." Richard slid the white envelope toward me. "This is temporary financial support. So you won't have to worry about costs in the next few months. We don't want you forced to choose between baby formula and rent." I hesitated, my hands trembling as I touched it. "I'm afraid taking money will make me dependent." Richard shook his head. "No, B. This isn't charity. It's protection. And every dollar we give will be repaid by Nathan. He has to learn responsibility, at least once in his life." Amelia stirred lightly in her crib, her tiny fists curling on their own. I looked at her, my throat tightening. This was no longer a story between me and Nathan. This was my daughter's future. Elaine gently brushed my hair. "She needs a strong mother, not a mother breaking in silence. You've done more than enough. Now let us carry some of it." Tears streamed down my face. I had once believed I had to fight to the end on my own, to stay strong without leaning on anyone. But today, for the first time, I felt the weight being shared. I squeezed Elaine's hand. "I agree. We'll do it this way." Richard gathered the papers, his expression softening. "Good. We'll make it official this week. Everything will be clear, no more shadows." I remained there, holding Amelia close after her grandmother handed her back, feeling her tiny warmth against my chest. My tears fell, tears of relief, because I finally knew that even if the road ahead was hard, I wouldn't be walking it alone anymore. In the days after signing the papers, I tried to focus on Amelia and on myself, but news of Nathan reached me through different channels, not because I sought it out, but because our small worlds still overlapped. An old coworker of his sent me a message. "B, I don't know if I should say this, but Nathan's affair is no secret anymore. Everyone at the office is talking." I read the words, strangely detached. Before, the thought of others knowing would have filled me with shame. Now, I didn't see it as my disgrace but Nathan's truth to face. Not long after, Elaine shared during a visit with Amelia, "That woman is gone. She left the moment she found out. Nathan's credit cards were cut off. Left a few cold messages, then blocked him." I wasn't surprised. Lies born in deceit also end in deceit. Nathan's career began to crumble too. Rumors of his affair, the disdain in colleagues' eyes, all of it stripped his reputation. In the end, the HR reassigned him to internal admin work. The promotion track vanished. To basic internal work, no more chances at advancement. A man once proud to boast of climbing towards senior management now slumped in a cramped office, filing papers like a rookie. Richard told me he needed to learn what consequences feel like. I heard Nathan had rented a damp basement apartment near the bus stop. Mold on the ceiling, water-stained walls, a tiny window barely letting in light. A former co-worker of mine happened to pass by and said, "I saw Nathan waiting for the bus in the rain, shirt wrinkled, shoes soaked." He looked like a completely different man. I felt neither joy nor pity. While Nathan wrestled with reality, I rebuilt life for Amelia and myself. Every first day of the month, my phone buzzed with a short message from Elaine. "Child support is deposited." The money arrived, not by fleeting kindness, but because a system now forced Nathan to be responsible. One afternoon, in the park near our home, I rested on a bench, Amelia sleeping peacefully in her stroller. I opened my phone, saw Elaine's familiar message, and smiled softly. Relief washed over me, not because of the money, but because of the certainty we were not abandoned. My mother handed me a warm cup of coffee. "You see, we keep moving forward." "Yes, Mom." Not because of Nathan, but because of those who truly choose to stay. Deep down, I knew the image of Nathan standing in the rain, clutching that worn bag, would always haunt me as a bitter lesson. But it was also a reminder that I was right to stop walking with him toward the abyss. I bent down, kissed Amelia's forehead. She stirred, then wrapped her tiny fingers around mine in her sleep. The day I moved into our new apartment, the late spring sky was clear and blue. The unit was on the third floor of a small building near the park, with a big window overlooking young oak trees sprouting fresh leaves. Morning light streamed through, spilling across honey-colored wooden floors, making the whole room glow. I carried Amelia inside, laid her in her crib. I had lined the walls with cream wallpaper dotted with white clouds, set up a small bookshelf full of picture books and stuffed animals. She was too young to read, but I wanted her to grow up in a space filled with stories and imagination. Teddy bears and bunnies were arranged neatly in rows, silent guardians of her sleep. My mother came in, setting down the last box with a satisfied smile. "This apartment suits you, B. The light, the air, everything feels right." I nodded, a gentle smile forming. "I want Amelia to grow up somewhere peaceful." Elaine arrived too, bringing a small potted plant she set on the windowsill. "A little green will make the room feel alive," she said, her gaze tender. "This is a new beginning." That evening, with Amelia asleep in her crib, I looked around the quiet apartment. After months of chaos, the quiet no longer felt hollow. It wasn't the haunting absence of warmth, but true peace. A stillness that belonged to me, chosen by me. I set the kettle on the stove, listening to the water bubble. I remembered the endless nights in the old house, Amelia's cries mixing with Nathan's cold keyboard clicks. Back then, I feared the hush that without footsteps or voices, I'd collapse. But tonight, in this small kitchen, I understood the hush could also comfort me when it's filled with peace. My mother reappeared, seeing me deep in thought. "What's on your mind?" I smiled faintly. "I think. For the first time, I can hear my own heart." Elaine came over, gently squeezing my hand. "B, you've been through so much. But the fact that you're standing here proves you're stronger than you think." I turned, watching Amelia sleep, and whispered, "I don't regret leaving. The only thing I regret is shrinking myself for so long, enduring too much. But I don't regret choosing peace." Elaine squeezed my hand tighter, her eyes shining with pride. "Daughter, that's not an ending. That's a beginning." I choked up, unable to say more. I looked again at Amelia, then at the sunlit window. Inside me, a small flame flickered, gentle but steady, lighting the path ahead. That night, after everyone left, I lulled Amelia to sleep with soft music. The room was still, filled only with her steady breathing. I stayed by her crib, opened the first picture book, and read aloud, though she didn't understand. I wasn't reading to teach, but to plant a new habit into the walls of this home, the habit of hope, of stories opening doors to the future. I no longer saw myself as the woman betrayed, abandoned in a cold house. I was a mother, a woman, rebuilding from broken pieces, and this time, the foundation I chose was peace. Outside, the night wind whispered through the trees. Inside the small apartment, I murmured a vow to myself: our journey has turned a new page. And we will never return to that old cage. Each time I looked at Amelia sleeping peacefully in her little room, I thought, maybe peace isn't something someone gives you. Maybe it's what you claim for yourself, when you finally have the courage to say, enough. But I also wonder, if it were you, what would you do? Would you hold on to audace, marriage for appearances, or let go to find real peace for yourself and your child? I would love to hear your thoughts, because surely there are hearts out there that have felt what I felt, that bittersweet relief of stepping out of an invisible cage. If this story touched something in you, leave a comment below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more real stories of family, marriage, and the choices that shape us, because who knows, the next story might be the one you, or someone close to you, needs to hear right now.